and comedian living in Nashville, Tennessee with her husband and 2 children. In her various artistic practices, she explores her identity as a birthing person, caregiver, and wife through artistic mediums traditionally associated with femininity and domestic craft. This is Anna's 4th story. Please welcome Anna McKeown.
Thanks. I woke up from a deep sleep and immediately opened my eyes. It was the kind of wake-up that felt like an alarm going off inside of your body, a bell chiming from deep within. The sleep was so deep that I was surprised at where I was and couldn't quite recall where or when I was. I looked around the dark room and felt an anticipatory stillness. Maybe it was Christmas. I took a deep breath and felt an intense pressure in my abdomen, and then I remembered I was pregnant and realized that my water had just broken. I was 38 weeks and 5 days pregnant, and I was lying on my side on my couch in my pitch-black living room. I carefully pried myself off the couch with my legs pinched closed, hoping not to make too much of a mess. Amniotic fluid isn't the sort of thing you can hold in, so I quickly scurried to the bathroom just in time for the flood. I felt an intense contraction. This wasn't my first rodeo, it was my second, and I was familiar with the stages of labor. For days before this, I had been experiencing random contractions that never really got stronger or closer together and were just kind of happening willy-nilly. But this was no false start. This was the real deal. I checked the time, 3:30 a.m. I woke my husband Troy and told him my water had broken. Almost immediately, contractions began and increased at a rapid pace. First every 7 minutes, then 5, and then suddenly every 3 minutes. At 4:30 a.m., we called our doula, Kelly. Thank God for Kelly. My pregnancy was extremely physically painful, and it was hard for me not to obsess over my desire to just get this baby out of me already. In the days before my labor, Kelly came to my home and did special stretches and exercises with me to prepare my body for labor. She massaged my hands and face to help me relax. She reminded me that the best thing I could prepare now was to rest. We all knew that when my labor did actually begin, it would likely be quick. My first baby was nearly 10 pounds and only took 9 hours to birth. And my dilation progressed from 4 centimeters to 9 centimeters in just an hour and a half. For those of you unfamiliar with the jargon, my cervix, which when you're not in labor is closed, went from the size of a Ritz cracker to a donut in the time that it would take you to watch Legally Blonde. For most other people, it usually takes the length of all of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The theatrical release, if not the extended versions. We decided to head to the hospital. What's your reason for your visit today? The admissions clerk asked without looking up. I'm having a baby, I said. Date of birth, she replied with no emotion. I lifted my finger and exhaled deeply. It felt like the top of my head was being pulled through the center of my body and out through my butthole. I took a breath in and said, March 28th, 1991. Social security number, she demanded, completely unfazed by the fact that I had just teleported to another dimension for the better part of a minute just then. We were admitted to the triage and my cervix was checked by a nurse. I was 4 centimeters dilated. This news kind of crushed me as I was expecting to be much further along. I was 4 centimeters the day before at my weekly OB appointment where my doctor asked, "Are you sure you're not in labor?" To which I responded, "I drove myself here." Shortly after we arrived at 5 a.m., Kelly joined us and she was right on time. My contractions became more intense and the back labor started. She squeezed my hips to counteract the intense pressure that I felt. But after only 2 contractions, about 7 minutes total of this, I started to feel really sick. I felt my body shake uncontrollably and I knew I was on the next stage of labor, transition. There are events in your life that feel like moments out of time. They are landmark events that when they are happening, you are only existing, surviving, and there's little time to think of what ifs and to weigh the options. This is what transition feels like. Your body flips the switch and suddenly you're in the hands of your own adrenaline and the team that is there to support you. I want to get on the bed. I was strangely calm despite every alarm bell going off in my body. I squatted on a bed pillow as my husband Troy held my hand. I felt another contraction, and as I pulled his arm, he tenderly leaned into me and hugged me close. No, I need you to stand strong. Without a hint of ego, he stood straight and acted as my resistance as I lifted myself up. I was no longer able to breathe through the contractions, and I suddenly realized that what every birthing person realizes, oh my God, this really freaking hurts. Just as I was about to fall into a vicious fear cycle, I felt the gentle hands of my doula on my legs. I heard her say, relax into this. You're almost there. You're almost ready to meet your baby. Her voice felt like an angel calling down from the heavens. I suddenly realized how tense my body was. I was clenching every muscle. I let myself melt. As I was melting into the bed, my nurse, Therese, walked into the room. How's it going? She asked cheerfully. If you heard her voice, you wouldn't have known it was only 6:15 in the morning. We chatted briefly as she told us the plan to move me into the birthing room after 7 a.m. after the nurse's shift change and the arrival of my doctor. Can you wait that long? She asked. I don't know, ask her, I replied, pointing at my daughter, who was at the moment trying to alien her way out of my body. Therese prepared to start my IV, and I felt another contraction, but this one was different. I let out an involuntary noise that sounded part cow and part whale, a guttural, animalistic wail that came from a place deep inside of my body. How long were you in labor with your first? Therese asked. My husband jumped in to explain while I was recovering. Oh, I wish I would have asked that earlier. Let me check you again. She lifted my gown and without any hesitation said, okay, you're complete, you're going to have a baby. She ran out of the triage room and called for the other nurses. She was met with some resistance until she sternly said, she's about to give birth in the triage bed as we speak. As Therese prepared with the other nurses, an adorable young nurse with long black curly hair came in with a wheelchair and asked, are you ready to have a baby today? The look on my face was likely a mixture of fury and horror as I wondered how in the hell I was going to get into the wheelchair. I was relieved when less than a second later, Therese returned and said, we're not taking the chair, we're taking the bed. 10 nurses suddenly appeared and pulled the bars on the sides of the bed up, and they started wheeling me down the hallway like an episode of Grey's Anatomy. I felt like I was on fire, and I had no control over what I was saying or doing, and I was watching myself from above the rolling bed as I screamed, I'm having a freaking baby right freaking now! I'll let you guess what I actually said. The hallway they took me to was not in use and was pitch black. Troy was flipping on lights, and nurses were pushing big buttons on the wall to open the double doors. They found the nearest room and tried to wheel me in, but on the first attempt, knocked the bed against the wall. The nurse, Therese, said, what is happening? All the while I was crowning and trying to keep my daughter from flying out of my body by taking short breaths like I was pretending to blow out birthday candles. Once in the room, a complete stranger came up to me and introduced herself saying, hi, I'm Ruth, I'm the resident, and I'm going to be catching your baby today. In between screams, I replied, okay, hi Ruth, nice to meet you. That sounds great. I saw a nurse appear between my legs, holding a bottle of oil, saying, I'm going to apply this oil to help protect your bottom. I found it funny that she was using such delicate language as she looked down at the absolute carnage that was my perineum. Joined her at the bottom of the bed and said, we don't have time for that. So the nurse just frantically poured the entire bottle. Ruth quickly looked around the chaotic room to make sure everyone was ready. Okay, Anna, with your next contraction, you can push. Finally, I thought, and I took a deep breath and just let go. I exhaled a long, ear-splitting scream as I relaxed my body. I felt a euphoric sense of relief as I could feel my daughter's body leave my own. I didn't push her out. She flew out on her own. Our first glimpse at her personality, a real go-getter, a powerhouse, a fireball. Rosalind Grace was born at 6:31 a.m., just 3 hours after my water broke. As I heard her mighty cries, I lifted my arms into the air and said the same words I said when my son was born. My baby, my baby! And then I began to sob as I put my hands over my face and I said over and over again, I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it.